Mike Gonzalez served as mayor of Kyle from 2005 to 2011 during a period of explosive growth that saw Seton Hospital, HEB Plus, an FM 1626 extension, and the replacement of 4 IH 35 overpasses. He also knows a lot about finance and economic development.
So I went to college, Texas State, got my degree in finance. After I got out of there, I worked for the Texas Department of Banking. I was a bank examiner, got to travel all over the great state of Texas, auditing banks, making sure they were financially solvent, make sure they weren't taking advantage of their consumers. I was a financial analyst for a military contractor. But the one thing I always was interested in was in politics. Because in politics, I saw that's the one thing you could do that you can have a positive impact on the most number of people. So when I first moved to Kyle with my wife, started getting active on the boards. I was on planning and zoning, on the water advisory board, countless other boards. Then the opportunity came up to run for mayor, and I got elected. And I was very fortunate to be elected there because it was at a time when we were going through enormous growth. There was a lot of issues that we were faced because we had all this residential move in, but we didn't have the infrastructure. So within my 2 terms there, we were able to do Seton Hospital, HB Plus. We did the 4 overpass, working with TxDOT, working with the city of Buda, working with all our neighbors. Much of the infrastructure we see there today was done during that administration. I got to lead when we had a great council. A lot of the council members are here. It was just, to me, that's what's amazing, is as an elected official, you can have such a positive good on families, and that's why I'm running here today.
Question 1 is, what do you see are the 2 most important issues that you will focus on as county commissioner?
So I would say the first issue would have to be really ties again to the growth, especially what we see along the I-35 corridor. Something I'm very familiar with being mayor for the city of Kyle during that explosive growth also. And the 2 things about the growth, I would say, the first thing is the roads. You know, obviously we need to address them directly, but no one entity can do it alone because when you look at all the overlapping jurisdictions that we have on the roads, you have to have the city, you have to have the county, you have to have the state, all working together. At the end of the day, it's the same taxpayers, but they all have different funding sources and they all have different priorities. So definitely, being able to manage the roads, because we know more growth is coming. We need to get ahead of that curve. And that's why I was excited to run, again, all the experience I had from serving on the Campbell board, from working with TxDOT, all those contacts, I can put to use right at the beginning to really start building up the infrastructure that we really desperately need throughout the new Precinct 2 here. The other part I would say is my policies are pretty simple. I love my precinct because it's really at the core, it's working families. So I'm going to represent the issues that are important to working families. And one of them has to be, reducing the burden on taxes, right? So the other part of the growth, I would say, is that it's not just the growth of the community, but the growth of government. A lot of times we may see some spillover of some of the policies coming in. We see other larger governments, they start creating all these different kinds of programs. Well, I've yet to see a program that once started ever goes away. And all that means is more and more tax burden for citizens. Again, I'm a very practical person. I'm all about doing what actually works and what gets results for working families in Precinct 2.
Thank you, Mike. Water is a major concern in Hays County and elsewhere in the country in Texas. Both the protection and availability to handle growth. What are your plans for dealing with this issue? And I'm going to go to Mike first.
Perfect. Again, one of the first involvements when I was in Kyle was with our water advisory board. So we got to talk to all the local conservation districts. I know everything there is to know about how water works, how the conservation districts work, the cost. So when I was mayor, that was one issue we were running to because what we call in the cities, you have to have a portfolio of water, right? Because you can't have just one source of water because if you have a drought, the conservation district comes in and says, hey, I know your permit was this, now it gets cut. Well, you have tens of thousands of citizens that still need water, right? So that's why when I was mayor, we initiated that Carrizo Wilcox. We joined with Buda, San Marcos, and other entities here to run a pipeline out to the aquifer out there to bring it in over here. Because when you look at the reservoirs that we have in the state, the largest reservoirs often are over the least populated areas. So you need to find a way to bring them in. So because there's 2 parts to it. It's not just the availability of water, but it's the affordability of water. A lot of people don't think about that part. surface water is probably one of the cheapest. Once you have to start drilling for it, it gets way more expensive. And that gets passed on to the ratepayers. So that's what it comes down to. So for us, instead of, for the city of Kyle, our policy was, hey, we need a diverse portfolio of different water sources. So that way we can always be turning them on and turning them off. But at the very first level was, hey, if we brought in water from outside the county over a place that wasn't that populated, it benefits the entire county, right? Because not everyone's as dependent as that. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is you really need to kind of navigate all the jurisdictions and all the different entities that control water in the state. And you just need to find actual solutions for your citizens.
Great, thanks, Mike. Mike, do you want to
Sure.
go ahead?
Again, my time as mayor, working with TxDOT on Campbell and all that was a good chunk of what I devoted my time to, and the results are obvious. Just getting the state to redo overpasses is a miracle. But getting to that level, I don't know if you all remember former Mayor Trube. We literally sat here at Dan's with a schematic from I-35 because we were arguing who was going to get the on and off ramps. TxDOT finally said, hey, we don't care. This is a certain number. You all figure it out. So we literally there at Dan's were lining them all up, and then we took them back to our councils and they got approved. But that's what it takes. It takes really understanding, having that network, not just at the city level, but also at the state. When you can pick up the phone and say, hey, we need to get this addressed because you already have those contacts, it makes a huge difference. It saves time. 1626 was the best example of us doing that also. 1626, our connection part was on a map for decades. And everyone said, someday they're going to do it. Someday, well, we got it done. And it was getting it done through a private sector development, TxDOT, and getting access to low interest financing. So that's what I would say is, again, mobility is quality of life. Mobility is about economic development. You need somebody who can not try to figure it out, but knows how to do it right now.
Very good, thank you, Mike. Each of you are going to get your closing statement for 1 minute, and we'll start with Mike.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Michelle, Susan, and Walt.
Great. Again, thank you all for putting this together. I think it's important for citizens to know exactly what the options are. Elections are about choices. The choice I represent is pretty simple. What's important to working families here in Precinct 2 are going to be my priorities. Like I said, I'm a very straightforward person. I'm about actually getting the results for families here, and I definitely have the experience. And that's really what I want to leverage. These terms go by really fast. Was my experience, I can kind of hit the ground running and actually start getting the results faster. My priorities are going to be pretty simple again. For homeowners, I want to be sure that we ease the tax burden. Everyone's talking about the taxes rising, and the best way to do that is to have a government focused on the biggest needs that impact the most amount of people. But also, I think the whole thing is a wider level of transparency. Yes, you can get all the information you want by doing a request, but it shouldn't be that hard. You should be able to go online and see exactly what your government's doing. And in fact, when you see exactly what we're doing, you should be proud of us and saying, yeah, we're doing this for you. So that's how I ensure that we keep our priorities aligned with working families.